Have you ever thought about converting a cyclocross bike to a gravel bike? Stay with us and we'll find out. My name is Brian Coe of Veloworthy. If you like this show, hit subscribe so you can get the notifications for new content. This is a Cannondale SuperX. Design was designed for tearing up the cyclocross circuit, but what I've done is I've taken this, made a few small changes, and actually converted it into more of a gravel bike, and I'll take you through it step by step. Let's start with the group set. The group set is the standard SRAM Force, but it's set up as a 1x. Now, it's not the higher end SRAM Red, but this complete bike put together weighs under 18 pounds, which is actually lighter than my road bike. It comes in a bright orange, very noticeable. We'll take you through the parts step by step. First of all, the cockpit is actually mostly standard. I put my own Zip 110mm stem on it, and it still has the standard Cannondale C2 handlebars. Now, if you want a more gravel style setup, you can get bars that have a slight flare to it. I also have the super sticky and super comfy SuperX bar tape, which comes in this nice little orange, which I think matches the bike great. All my information is set up on the same Wahoo that I have set up on my road bike, and it sends me all the information. And also I have a Stages power meter, left side crankset that tells me a lot of the data that I need. Now, normally with cyclocross bikes don't use bottle cages. In fact, for a 45-minute or an hour-long race, you can go that entire time with no water or hydration, or you can have someone hand it to you. With longer events, such as BWR or Grinduro, you want to carry at least 2 bottle cages, and here I've outfitted the King Titanium standard bottle cages. I've never ejected a bottle with these cages. They are the industry standard as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you look at the standard geometry, it's a very aggressive setup, and the main thing with cyclocross versus gravel has to do with tires and tire clearance. The tires that I have on here are the new IRC Boken Double Cross 38s. Now, these replace the older Bokens, which was more of a file tread, and these have much larger knobs on the side and middle. This will get you through 90% of the gravel, sand, and dirt in North County, San Diego, and beyond. These tires come in widths of 33, 38, and 42, and I was a little afraid that the 42 weren't going to clear, but looking at my forks and dropouts the way they are, I think a 42 would actually clear. That is a tubeless setup, set up to about 60 PSI, but I'll take it out as I go, probably down to closer to 50 PSI, and that is attached to these carbon Spinergy GXC wheels. Now, these wheels are not your standard cyclocross wheel. They're more of a gravel wheel because of the width. They're a little bit wider, but they're still plenty aero, and they use the PBO technology in their spokes, which basically means these spokes are tensioned, and when not under tension, they're actually loose like a spaghetti string or a guitar string. So these are tensioned just at the right time, so I've never had to true any of my wheels before, and I've never broken a spoke. These are bomb-proof. With these wheels and these tires, this wouldn't be great necessarily for cyclocross, but it would be perfect for gravel. The other thing that I want to talk about that has to do with converting cyclocross to gravel is the gearing. Some people who are in cyclocross stick to a strictly 10 by maybe 32 cassette. The one that I have on the back there is a 1042 cassette, and it's a 1x setup in the front. This gives me a ton of range when I'm grinding up a steep mountain for 5 or 6 miles. The reason why they're not as wide in cyclocross is because 1, the speeds are high, and 2, if it's something that's really steep, it's usually A, short, and B, you get off your bike, throw it over your shoulder and run up it. So that's one of the main differences between cyclocross and gravel. The other thing too is I have these Shimano XTR mountain bike pedals that I've put up here. These work great in a variety of conditions. It clears mud and it keeps my feet secure. These are pretty much the go-to pedal that I use and many others use. And again, for cyclocross as well as gravel, I would say people do both. I have been to gravel races though, where some people opt for road pedals because they're getting off the bike less, it's not as technical, and it's just more mixed surface of an event. Let's take a look at the saddle. I tend to run the same saddle across everything, and I think if you do that, it creates less confusion when it comes to measuring your bike or just positioning. I'm using the Shimano Pro Stealth saddle. It is the snub nose saddle, and if you need to see that review of snub nose saddles, you can check in the archives for that. But it is a snub nose saddle with a big cutout in the middle for relief, and then it also has carbon rails, so again, it keeps this thing super duper light. Now let's talk about some of the other things that might not be as apparent when it comes to gravel versus cyclocross or vice versa. It uses a Cannondale Save seat post. Now it comes in a 25.4 diameter, which is a little bit rare in the industry. Most people use 27.2, and as a result of that, you can pretty much only use Cannondale's proprietary seat posts. It has a locking bolt right here, and you pretty much need to have your measurements set before you do any adjusting, especially when you're out there in the middle of nowhere. The other thing too is any wheel that needs to be set up in the rear is something that is asymmetrically set up, which means you need to dish the wheel according to Cannondale specifications. Otherwise, that wheel won't fit properly. And the reason why is because we have asymmetrical seat stays on most Cannondale bikes, especially the SuperX. Now, when it comes to Cannondale, they've gone beyond the Cannondale SuperX. They've got the slate, the top stone, and a number of other drop handlebar style bikes that are designed to be taken out on dirt and mixed surfaces, including gravel. But what started off originally as a cyclocross bike, with enough changes, this can handle pretty much every single type of terrain. Now, most of Cannondale's bikes come as disc brake standard. This is no exception. It uses the SRAM Force disc brakes. These are both 160 millimeters, which gives you plenty of bite to it. And then in order to save weight, this is the dropout here. And it doesn't have a quick release. It doesn't have any fancy way. You've got to use an old-fashioned 4mm Allen key to take your wheel out. So always pack one with you when you're out there traveling, because in case you get a flat, if you don't have that tool, you can't take the wheel off, both for front and rear. A couple of other things that you might need to notice: it comes in this stunning carbon fiber orange. Like I've said before, it really stands out, and I love the fact that Spinergy set me up with these wheels that comes with this orange branding as well. It is something that is very, very noticeable, hopefully out on the trails and maybe when it gets a little dark out. If we look at the chain, it's your standard SRAM chain attached to the single 40-tooth chainring, and these crank arms are 172.5. These are the hologram cranks. Now, with these crank arms, like I said, it has a stages power meter on the left side of it, and then as a result, I ride normally 80 to 90 RPM cadence on the road, a little slightly less for that for gravel. But again, if you're on a long, flat, dirt road section and you really need to ramp up the speed, you could knock it down to the 10 tooth and be in the 40 and bring it up to a solid 27, 28, 29 miles an hour and even faster before you really start to spin your legs out. Now, one of the things that I've noticed that I really like about this bike is the versatility that you can do with it. You add new wheels that are wider, you add new tires that are wider, and in cyclocross races, they have a regulation where you can't use over a certain width of tire. With the handlebars, like I said, these are standard, but you can opt for the flare handlebars. And for you bike packers out there, you can get really crazy and carry extra bags, both on the top tube, on the saddle, as well as on the handlebars, and go bike packing as far and wide as you ever wanted to go. Now, I've seen people like Stephen Hyde win cyclocross races on this bike, and I've also seen riders like Taylor Phinney complete Dirty Kansas on this bike. This is a totally versatile bike. And let's say I ever wanted to go back to cyclocross racing, it's real simple. All I would do is take the bottle cages off, change out the tires to a more narrow width. I would even keep that gear cluster in the back, that 1042, but pretty much use the lower gears, and then I'm ready to go. I really love SRAM Force. Now, it doesn't take all of the glory that SRAM Red Axis does. In fact, this is the mechanical version. I have yet to upgrade to the ETAP version, but I like the fact that these brake hoods are super high and you can almost use them like bar ends on those longer rides, and it actually gets really comfortable. So, and again, it's a one by, so it's got the shifter on the right side lever and then nothing on the left side lever. Now, with all of these changes, you can still ride plenty out there, especially with these tires and wheels, the way it's set up. But feel free to experiment on your bike and what you like to do. Me personally, I don't really race as much as I used to, so this bike is more of the Swiss Army knife do-it-all. I'm not into bike packing. I'm not into taking 5,000 mile long rides. So this is good enough for me from anywhere as short as a 1 hour ride to doing something long like Grinduro or the Belgian Waffle ride. Now, what's your setup? Do you like the cyclocross to gravel setup, or are you more of a gravel purist? Let us know in the comments. But until next time, this is Brian Coe saying stay Veloworthy.